Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Introduction to Yin-Yang Cupping. My name is Robin Pierce, and I'm the Senior Brand Manager at L.AC OMS. Cupping therapy has evolved dramatically from traditional horns and bamboo cups to glass spire cups, plastic pump systems, and modern silicone designs. The newest advancement, square cups, offer practitioners unprecedented precision and versatility. In this webinar, Stan and Brian Bowen will discuss strategies to show how practitioners may refine their clinical cupping therapy outcomes. Our webinar presenters are Stan, a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, as well as the founder of Eastern Currents, AccuFast, and Fascia Buddy, and Brian Bowen, a licensed acupuncturist and musculoskeletal expert and the founder of Tao Needle Therapy, Integrative Health Incorporated, OUTCH Ointment, and Better Human Company. Before we get to the presentation, let's take a moment to ask the webinar room. To the bottom right of the screen, you'll see two tabs, questions and chat. To connect with other attendees or notify us of any difficulties, please use the chat tab. At the end of the presentation, we'll use the chat tab to post the promo code specific to this event. If you have any questions for the presenters, please use the questions tab. Your questions will be answered at the end of the lecture during our Q&A session. Please note that each webinar is recorded, and immediately following the conclusion, you'll receive a link to view the video on demand, a copy of the slides, and a promo code to use on your next order at L.AC OMS. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to John and Brian.
Hey guys. Hello, everybody. Brian.
Hello there.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Brian and I are like bros. We click on many levels on technology. We like our toys, and we click on our passion for TCM, and we click on just our ability to kind of like engage with people on terms of working with patients and kind of engaging with patients and working them towards a healthier state of being. Before we get started, I do want to do a quick little poll and just get a sense of how you are practicing with cupping. So if you can look on your lower right side, there should be a little tab, say polls, and then it'll pop up. I don't see it just popping up just yet, but can you load that first poll there? Yes. So now, which of the following percentage best reflects the amount of cupping done on your patients in a day? So like, just click one of the buttons I want to see, kind of just in reference how often you are applying cupping or myofascial decompression. I'm going to submit mine, and let's see how people, 20% seems to be the big number. So far, 50 have submitted. All right, so I won't delay this too long. So we're going to just start with, say, 35% of the practitioners use 20% of the time, 6% use 40% of the time, and a couple use it 100% of the time. I like you guys, 100% of the time. And then I have another poll. If you want to load the second poll, there's Stephen asking if you recommend cupping for home self-care. So let's see here. I'm going to submit this one. And right now, I do sometimes is leading. I don't at all is second. And the least is I do quite a bit. So I'm hoping that at the end of this webinar, this video, that you will shift that a little bit so that you can use the second most recent cupping variation and recommend that to your patients. And you can sell that to your patients and make a little income on that too. So, all right, I'm going to share my screen now and we'll get into the presentation.
I'm glad you have that job.
Okay. All right. So the goal of this webinar is to introduce you to the idea of yin and yang cupping, which will offer you great changes for your patient with less effort from you. Of course, with myself and Brian here, we're going to take you through this. Hopefully, by the end of today, you're going to understand all the different types of cupping devices on the market and their strengths and weaknesses. And hopefully, I'm going to, in the beginning part of this webinar, talk to you about crossover language that is currently evolving in whole systems health thinking from the Western point of view and our TCM theory. We're also going to try to develop some crossover language about when you speak to your patients about cupping, that you're not using like kind of terms that are outdated, like, oh, we're getting rid of toxins, and yeah, we're just we're moving chi and blood, right? So you want to use modern terms that are reflective of the type of actual mechanisms that we're using when we do cupping. And then we'd like to pull that all together with what are the latest 2 generations of cups that really, when working together, offer you a lot of new options and choices. And then if we have time, we'll do a little, I have a training video on how to do this amazing quick neck release that will increase your range of motion on your patients within just 3 to 5 minutes. So let's get started. We already kind of got introduced by Robin, and so yeah, I've been practicing 35 years. I stepped away from my practice to now develop products that really are going to be helpful in the clinic, because I found during the clinic when I was practicing, a lot of waste was being generated. So I helped generate the first eco-friendly brand of acupuncture needles with accessories that actually help you control an open pouch of needles. And then also we developed the cupping system, the square cupping system, which I developed out of frustration with the cupping gaps that occurred. So that's about me. I love Chinese medicine. I love cupping. I love needling. And I love basically anything that's life affirming. I'm going to give it over to you, Brian.
Well, thank you guys for having me on here, and thank you, John, for inviting me on this, and thank everybody who's spending their afternoon jumping on this call today, this webinar, and taking time out of their patients to invest in your own knowledge. I just got back from an amazing class, Invest in My Knowledge, and it's a good space to be a learner and to learn from others. So hopefully there's some good golden nuggets you can take away from today. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I started doing massage therapy 27 years ago and have been an acupuncturist for 25 years ago. I hold a bunch of different certifications, just to tie into what John was saying. You know, for me, I'm a big musculoskeletal specialist. I love musculoskeletal. I love treating other things too, but I constantly love to learn from other people. So I did go ahead and get my postural alignment specialist, personal trainer, corrective exercise specialist, high performance coach, and all the little things you see there. And before we move to that next slide, just to talk about that, is we can learn the language from so many different people, and we can learn the modalities, and it just helps us see things from a deeper, richer level and from a more holistic perspective. And so these things intertwine beautifully. And so as we, as acupuncturists, are in a world that is working more with physical therapists and physiotherapists and other needle therapists, I think it's important to constantly create that bridge and build that knowledge.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in there. Like, Western medicine is always cherry picking our techniques to put into theirs, but we can also cherry pick their language and cherry pick the ideas that they have and bring them into our language and our discussion. So carry on there, Brian.
Absolutely. So in my ventures in life, I am the founder of what's called down needle therapy. It's a specialized needle and a specialized system that takes a lot of my background, where I found some challenges with passive and active care and what long-term correction really looks like. And we can get into some of that when we get into the cupping, not something to touch on now. And then the next little bullet point is teaching is internationally. So I might have some people on here, some students from some of the places I have taught in, which I hope you're on here. I also invented and patented a face cradle called the Omni 360 face cradle, which is just revolutionary for the market of being able to take people from static positions to more dynamic positions when we're actually approaching the body and really trying to access deeper tissue. And so that's where John and I's passion comes in with our desires to help evolve this medicine as well. And so super excited to talk to you about those things. And I'm the founder of OUTCH Ointment, which some of you probably buy off of Lhasa OMS. And so thank you for that. And it's an herbal-based formula that works with pain and has Chinese herb, CBD, and magnesium.
So let's get into some of the big ideas that I want to get you all excited about, and maybe you're already excited about them. I want to get you even more excited about them, because we are now kind of bringing the two systems of traditional medicine and modern medicine together to really bring out this whole systems wellness idea. And then as we talk today, we want to bridge that with sort of a language that you can use when you're talking to your patients so that you are seen as current, and then that language you can use to talk to your doctor or to the doctor who's taking care of your patient and be able to meet them eye to eye or language to language. So. And as we know, as TCM, a lot of you have seen this image before, and just ask yourself, what is the first thing that pops up here for you? Do you see a table? Do you see two people just about to kiss? Is it a champagne glass? It could be all one or all three of those things. And the reality is, and we know this as practitioners, is that there's no one fixed reality, and it's filtered by the belief system of the viewer, but also in the clinic, you are the viewer of your patient, and that one fixed view, if you're only coming at it from one view, then you're basically pulling that patient into your ideas. So we want, through this talk, to have you open up to the biggest view of that patient and to see them as the miraculous being that they are. I mean, and science is actually recognizing this now with their quantum physics, in the fact that everything is influenced by the viewer. And so a well-known scientist called Werner Heisenberg calls that the observer effect. And we really need to be conscious that when we engage with our patient, as we observe them, the more views that we can bring into that clinic room, the better that patient is going to be able to respond. So we're going to quickly go through some of these ideas. Our medicine is rooted in interconnectivity. And it's a fundamental principle. And weirdly enough, Western medicine is now finally connecting with that. The ideas of tensegrity, how everything is connected, not only in the sort of world around us, but internally, the interconnectivity is relating right down from the cell level, right into our ideas of how we see the world and how the world engages with us, right? So how I see the world is also pulling forth a way in which the world sees me. And so that's a greater dynamic that we all really need to be passionate about. And one of the people that is really leading this movement is Dr. Jean-Claude Guimbardeau. And I want you to just check out this video, Strolling Under the Skin. If you haven't seen it yet, you should. It'll be popping up in the chat now. Click on it after this webinar. It's a little bit technical, but he was able to go with an endoscope under a living into the skin and see all the movement of interconnective tissue. And I just watched a video from him. He did a video presentation because he's gone over the last number of years deep into his research on fascia, and his conclusions is like, it's all connected right down from the nucleus of the cell all the way out to the epidermis of the skin. Everything is connected. And this theme, everything is interconnected, is now coming forth in multiple ways. So another person to take a look at is Dr. Neil Thies. He's another medical doctor who has done a lot of research with interconnectivity, emergence, chaos theory, and all these ideas that he is bringing forth all validate our principles of Chinese medicine, yin-yang, the relationship of opposites. They call that complementarity now. Yin and yang equals complementarity in Western medicine. And if you have a chance, go and get his book, Notes on Complexity. It's a great book that takes you right down from the basic science of chaos and complex systems theory into living systems as human beings. So that's a little preamble about some of the current thinking out there. Perhaps some of you are familiar with it, but Brian, why don't you take us into this now, the fascial and extracellular matrix within?
Yeah, if you could go ahead and just highlight that whole slide for me.
Okay.
I know we're talking about fascia a lot, and we want to continue on with this because it is the connective matrix that binds every living thing, everything in our body, from a cellular level to muscles to bone to everything. And it's made of collagen fibers, which give it that tensile strength and that integrity, and the elasticin, which is that recoil. And then a really important piece is that ground substance, which gives it that lubricating force. And when we have stress in life, when our nervous system is more sympathetic, and as we age, we start to get depleted, in that ground substance. And so that whole thing about motion is lotion is critical to allowing that viscosity and for keeping the health of that, maintaining our stress levels, and being able to not leak chi, if you will, and be able to build and cultivate chi. Again, it encompasses everything. I want to spend just a moment while we're talking about the fascia, just to make sure we realize as we talk about the fascia, it goes beyond that even. So we have to think about how the musculoskeletal chains connected all the things from blood vessels to nerves to our interstitium to the fascial layers. When we get into cupping, you're going to see some cool images later on how it's tractioning and creating space for all those things. So even though we're going to be talking about how we can reshape, how we can increase the health of this tensegrity model, how we can allow for these fluids, these Yin and Yang fluids to move better and give them better health and support them in the way they need to be supported, we're creating space between all these other layers to allow for better nerve signaling, allow for the interstitial fluids to move, allow for muscle fibers to be able to move appropriately and break up adhesions. There's so many rich layers that you can just keep thinking about. So every time you're feeling an area that doesn't have movement, just know when you're adding movement and you're creating space within that tissue, you're affecting things at multiple levels. And there's a master dissector out of Boulder who I took a class, and he said life exists within the spaces. And so it was cool to hear from somebody who's working on these cadavers to really honor the spaces between the tissue. And so just know that even though we're talking about fascia, the other layers are so important, and you're affecting all of those. So the slide that popped up right now, or actually go back to that one just for a sec, John. Was it the left ear I pulled to go back, or the right ear? So this slide, going back to just specifically a little bit more about the fascia, it's really important for force transmission, and again, to allow for the health of that fascia, that there's kind of a couple components here I'm going to talk through quickly. There's things that we're doing on a daily basis that impacts that. So anytime there's a stress or strain, whether it's a postural stress or strain, whether it's a mechanical force of trauma, whether it's internal inflammation, that tissue starts to get thickened. Okay, so like a forward neck posture, you'll start to get thickening around C7. If you have an anterior pelvic tilt and those quads are tight, or that superficial front line, that's going to cause adaptive shortening in those in that lumbar sacral thoracolumbar area, and that's really rich with that. So it almost like spot welds in places and starts to lose some of that flexibility, and we start to lose the absorption of it and the shock absorption properties of it. So that's why some things can be challenging, especially when we get into that area, is we have to look at the body. How do we make those changes to take that stress off, whether it's an active therapy that we're giving them or a passive therapy like cupping that we're going to be talking about. So seeing the body from a holistic perspective, from a postural, taking a log off the fire and us being able to put water on the fire, all important things. As this gets healthier, as this environment gets healthier, our proprioceptive function improves. So anytime there is dysfunction somewhere in the body, we start to get these compensations and we lose proper proprioceptive function, whether it's balance, whether it's synergistic muscles firing off when they don't need to. There's that whole trickle down. And of course, we lose the movement of the fluid dynamics and intracellular matrix. So that's the part you can't see or you can't feel, and that's a very important part to this whole thing, is how do we create that movement? How do we allow for these fluids to continue to move from that gel state to solid state? How do we keep that fluidity in that continuum? So the key concept at the bottom here says fascia is dynamic, responsive, and communicative system when it's working properly. Next slide, sir. So this is the fascia and the TCM shared language. So this is an interesting one. And these are just ideas. Again, there's a lot of stuff coming out. Even I love the interstitium and talking about that and just thinking about that. But I've talked a lot in the past in my courses about chi flow, through these fascial planes, if you will. And when it says electrical signaling, it's proven that there is piezoelectric signaling within the fascial system, right? And don't forget, we have superficial fascia, myofascia, and those deep fascial layers. So when we're palpating and we're improving that, we're thinking about all these layers. And of course, you have the septums between the muscles themselves. But there is this piezoelectric signaling. So when we're getting the proper health of the fascia, we are improving this mechanical forces. We're improving the communication of chi. But how does chi, electric signaling, biomagnetic fields all work together? What does this mean? Channels, the fascial force transmission pathways, obviously with Tom Meyer's work, which stemmed a lot of other fascial stuff, and so many good fascial researchers in the Fascial Research Institute out there doing their work, and Pony Chang talking about these transmissions of these pathways. 80+% of the myofascial meridians overlap the channels, the Chinese meridians. So just something to contemplate as we think about this. Blood stasis, obviously, when there's reduced circulation and there's compression. And again, think about how can we create space in the body to allow for things to move. So I'm a manual therapist as well. So whether it's acupuncture, dry needling, Tao, whatever I'm doing, and manual therapy, I'm thinking about how can I get movement when there's not movement, and how can I create more space in the body to allow for that blood to move, to allow for those interstitial fluids to move. So the Jin fluids are the interstitial fluids in that soul state. Ye fluids are the dense fluids in the with the glycopolygen, I just lost my words all of a sudden. You got that. in the extracellular.
Glycoaminoglycan.
Yes. I always have a challenge with that one.
Yeah.
So it's cool, to, again, I'm taking forever, and I apologize. My guardrails came off a little bit. That these are just cool things to think about, and it's really interesting. It opens up your mind to these new ideas for some of you, and more ideas for others. Go ahead to the next slide.
And being able to kind of think about, Jin and Yi, fluid and more dense exchange between the two substances in the interstellar matrix. You want to be able to have those states occurring frequently. And if you're still for too long, or you're moving too much, that normal balance between these two states to keep things moving and circulating gets interrupted, and that's where the imbalances occur. Mm-hmm. So, carry on, Brian. We'll just kind of quickly move through these.
How are we doing on time? We're okay. Oh, we're good. I love what you said. We have to always think about I like to think about excess and deficient, right? So whether we're thinking about hypomobility or hypomobility, and what does that feel like? And what does the densification of the tissue feel like? So you can have hypomobility that's affecting some of this, and you can have hypermobility affecting this, as far as when it's to the musculoskeletal system. So how do all of these play together? So with stationary cupping, we're creating vertical decompression of tissue. I have a cool slide I'm excited to show you guys later that I did with some static cupping, and we're lifting up that extracellular matrix. You will see the depth at what you can actually lift and traction and create space through these tissues, which is super beautiful. I always told people for years what I thought it did without actually seeing evidence of it. And so it's cool to be able to see the evidence and back up what I've been saying all these years. I'm not pulling people's leg. So obviously we're opening up that space to increase the microcirculation and lymphatic fluids and circulation to the tissue. We're allowing that separation for any time there's an adhesion. So again, anytime there's maybe even a small tear or something like that that's happened, we start to have that overlapping in a kind of a crazy pattern that can really bind and create these adhesions through different fascial planes. And that can be a superficial, again, in the myofascial plane, or deep fascial plane as well. And then we're stimulating those fibroblasts. Again, we're constantly changing that state. So if there's a densification to it and there's a thickening, we need to allow it to create that mobility into more of a soul state, into more of a fluid state. And that allows it to have more adaptability, to be able to be more dynamic with movement, and to take the stresses of life. And so that high tension structural change, I like to think of, you'll hear it referred to like the fascias, the architecture or the scaffolding, right? And the interstitium or these other fluids and systems kind of flow between everything. Moving cupping, this is my favorite. I have a little ADHD, I think. So for me to put cups on somebody and like leave a room for 10 minutes is not my favorite thing. I love to be there with the patient and be doing things with them. So I love migrating cupping or active cupping. So static cupping is a passive cupping. So, and it's really, really, I like to think about it much greater for being able to really stretch and move those fascial planes. The other thing too is, I know a lot of people do like some of the glass cups because they feel like it creates that thermal property to really help soften tissue. But when you see some of these slides later, you're going to see that static cupping has really dramatic thermodynamic properties by putting that stretch on that tissue. And so when you're doing the migrating cupping, now you're following through those planes and you can really start to palpate where those adhesions are. And so you can help to really help break those up, really get a lot bigger glide between those. I like to do some pistoning stuff too. So I'm just relating it to needle techniques. So I like to grab the cup and I like to traction up. So you can move it back and forth, but like to pick it up and then to pick. And so, and to add that little twist every now and then. It's amazing.
Well, I'm just going to jump in here because
Yeah.
that pistoning thing works really well, because what you're doing is basically creating these waves that are just going to kind of circulate through that interstitium and through the intracellular matrix. It's actually a super cool a technique that I think people miss out on.
Yeah.
And twisting too. But the pistoning is really like generating that wave.
Yeah, and it's when you guys are, I know a lot of you obviously are experts at this, so I don't want to like preach to the choir here, but you can do fun things too, like you can cup above and cup below, right? If you know some of your fascial planes, and you can do some cool work between while you're kind of putting traction on proximal and distal points, and you can do static cupping on proximal and distal points while you're doing migrating cupping between the two. So just it should be a playground that we're all just playing with and experiencing.
Absolutely.
And like who that cupping could evolve, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm still amazed golf clubs are evolving. Like how much more, like, the picture on the left is a picture of some tissue that's homogeneous. So it's very uniformed, right? It doesn't have like a kind of chaotic pattern to it. And the more uniform it is, the more densification there is to that tissue. So basically, that's not good. Heterogeneous is the picture to the right, and you can see it's looser, it's varied. So if I were to like throw a ball like that, which one do you think is going to absorb that pressure and be able to not have it tear the tissue, to be able to take the impact of it and distribute that impact, and distribute the force as it should be? It's going to be the heterogeneous. So the homogeneous picture on the left, that's before cupping on this tissue, and then the heterogeneous is after cupping. So that's what you always want to see under ultrasound. Here's a video that we'll play, and the picture, I don't know if you guys can see it, the line that's pointing down is the top, or the femur. And so this is approximately about 4 or 5 cun down by the quadricep or rectus femoris. And so you'll see this cupping is actually used on a vacuum cupping machine. And what's happening is as that machine gets negative pressure, you'll see that tissue pull up and get more uniform, right? And so then, and you can see the layers separate and pull up off the bone. Now you'll see that pistoning, you can see that bouncing, and you can really see that traction all the way down to the bone. So the point of this video, if you want to, can you hit play one more time, John? Please.
Okay.
So the point of this video is so you can see the expansion of those fibers. Any dark area is going to be more fluid. The white areas you're seeing are more fascial planes. That one you can see is a septum, and then the myofascia. And again, watch it contract, and as the negative pressure happens and pulls and tractions it apart and lift off the bone. And then when you start to see it bounce in a minute, that's going to be me right here taking the cupping and doing a little pistoning, so you can see how it goes all the way through. And my legs, you guys can't see them, but they're pretty big. Not really, but so, okay, I think that got that point across, so go ahead.
Okay. So, so thanks, Brian. That's, your expertise is great here, and we both love cupping, so we got a lot to say about it. But let's do a quick review of cupping over the years. And in the beginning, basically anything that could hold a vacuum was used, but traditionally bamboo cups were used quite a bit. They're easy, light, they can be warmed, but again, you couldn't see what was going on the inside. You didn't have really much control as required of playing, and it was hygiene-wise, it had some limitations that way. The next generation, which is still a very popular way of doing cupping, is the glass cups. We really get a strong suction there, smooth edges, great for a good seal. You can see what's happening with the transparentness of it. Excellent static cupping. It gives you a good, a deep lift. However, so you do need a flame. There's a bit of a kind of like a song and dance that's done with it. And I want to kind of alert people too, if you're doing a lot of glass cupping and using the flame, you're breathing in a lot of the ethanol vapors that you required when you dip that cotton ball in that ethanol and light that up. And so that's a small amount each little time, but as you're doing cupping over years and glass cupping with that ethanol, it does have a negative effect on the practitioner. It's kind of like mocks of smoke. You don't notice it, and it's incremental, but it does have an effect. And I think using cupping, glass cupping for the intended purpose of pulling out cold and using it for that thermal effect is great, but I would have you use it more specifically for that purpose. And then, of course, came the plastic cups with the pump, which was now you can definitely get that perfect suction level that you want. There's no fire. It's lightweight. You can use it with movement, and it's been a nice alternative. And a lot of people do the plastic cupping. It gives you a smooth glide. It's less smooth glide actually than the glass, and it can feel a little bit mechanical, but it can also be very intense. The fourth generation is the silicone cups, and the silicone cups, once they come into the market now, are very, very amazing. And when I first started using these, I that was all there was for me, and I use them frequently. You have a great suction. You don't need fire. They're lightweight and durable. You can use them over bony surfaces. You can use them with movement and get some great results with them. You may get less suction than you would with a plastic cup, but if you know how to apply them properly, and a lot of people ditch these because they try them and they put them on in a manner that's not really getting the maximum suction, and they think that's it, and they go, oh, I'll go back to my plastic cups. But they really actually, if you know how to apply them with the proper method, I can demonstrate that later if we have time. You get a lot of suction and they can be used. And the other drawback is that if you're doing moving cupping, the cup lip may fold and you may lose pressure. But other than that, these are a really excellent cupping device. And then there's the cupping device that I brought into the world, which is the multi-size square plastic cups. Basically, I designed it so that we had 5 different sizes to work with, so we can target specific tissues. And it's a 20 cups in one set with 4 of each cup size. And the idea was that I wanted to be able to kind of eliminate the gaps that occur when you try to put a group of circular cups together, because that always frustrated me, because I always felt like I wasn't really capturing the whole area. And if I was using cups along a specific plane or line, we basically have these pinch points that occur at the connection between the circles, and that distorts the fascia, perhaps not in the way that I was hoping to. So with the square cups, we actually now can start rethinking our sort of our strategy on the body, and look at trying to create a decompression zone, a myofascial decompression zone. So when you put one cup on, there's a decompression zone on that, all the area beneath that cup is engaged. And that triggers a whole bunch of responses in the body. The capillary beds get flushed, nerves and interstitial fluids all get kind of like flushed also, and cleaned up, and all the metabolites that are stuck in the tissue start to get liberated. But now you can put these square cups side by side and create a myofascial decompression zone. And so the square design, you can use the different sizes to actually target the tissue very specifically. And the entire perimeter of the zone that you're targeting now becomes the decompression zone. It's not just a spot here and a spot here. It's like the spots all around those cups. And so a myofascial decompression matrix basically is, when you look at sort of like hypertonic or hypotonic tissues, in either state, there's distress happening to the cells and the tissues causing pain. And using the Fascia Buddy square cups, you can use the cups to get right under the occiput there with the extra small cups. From there, you can build and target the tissue that you want. And then that now becomes your targeted zone. You can have your patient do a bit of range of motion while those are on, and then again, further engage the tissue. So I'm just going to show you this picture here of the cups placed along the mid and low back, and they were held on for like 5 minutes. And then when you took them off, you can see that the pinkness is in the tissues all around there. It's actually a decompression zone, which is now what we're having you try to shift your thinking to. It's not just like a spot here and a spot here. It's a zone that you're working with. So Brian, you can take this one over because you created this one here.
Yeah, I do. I just want to say, as I was looking at those pictures and as you were talking, I just want to throw how cool I think it is when you think about all the tools that we have. Even just talking about this makes me really appreciate most of the tools we have are compressive in nature, right? Whether it's a foam roller, a percussion gun, gua sha, I know that they can decompress after a while by releasing tissue, but they're compressive in nature from the start. Where cupping, there's not very many tools that you have that are decompressing like that. So I don't know, it's just super cool to give it a little kudos on how special it is. The picture that you're seeing right now, the bottom leg is my right leg and the top leg is my left leg. And on the bottom leg, I did 3 cups, medium-sized circular cups, and in the exact estimated approximately the same place as the left leg. And the left leg, I did 3 medium-sized square cups, and then had them stacked together to remove those pinch points and create more of a decompression zone. And I let them both set for 5 minutes. And then afterwards, I took this is under thermography. I took another picture with the thermal imaging camera. And you can see the top leg has a much more even spread, much more even blood flow, much more even thermal signature. And so again, this was what I was talking about. Like, this isn't fire cupping, right? But this is what happens just by having that static cup there. There's that thermal property to it with the increase in blood flow and stuff. So just cool to see with the square cups, having them tight together, creating that zone, how even of a thermal signature it left compared to the other one where you can see some more hot spots where those cups were.
The other thing that's really cool with the cups is that you can do moving cupping, and it's kind of like gua sha supercharged. When you place a little bit of oil down, and now you have the flat, straight edge of the cup as you move it along the tissue to really begin to engage both on a compressive. You see here I'm diving on the front, lifting on the back. that is like a unique thing that really is has an amazing effect on the body because it's a kind of a dynamic funnel change. And the other really cool things you could do with the square cups is that while you can do the flat edge, which is like the gua sha edge, you can then, with a little twist, 45 degrees, you'll see me switch it right here now. So I'm doing flat edge, and now I just start digging in with the corner. And as I dig in with the corner, now I have an instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization tool at play as I engage those tissues. So this is kind of like a really additional feature that you can't really do with a circular cups. So I'm just demonstrating here that I'm diving on the front end with the corner and then lifting on the back end, and basically like a plow, I'm plowing through the tissues, and I'm kind of creating this turbination in a kind of an exaggerated way that you wouldn't normally get if you just do lifting cupping along the way. So I switched here to a smaller cup in the treatment, and again you can kind of see gua sha straight back and forth using the flat and front edge, and then just with a little bit of a turn, you dive in and you can kind of start sort of working the knots and the tissues, and you, as you work with the cup, you can feel where those areas are, the gritty bits, and then when you feel those gritty bits, that's when you can turn the cup and start digging in and start to release those tissues. So
I want that done to
basically,
me so bad.
what's that?
I want that done to me so bad right now.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I first started doing it, it's like the patient was like, "Oh my God, that feels
Yes,
so good."
Laura.
Yeah. So here's just some examples of treatments using the square cups on areas that of the body. You can see there on the Achilles tendon. You do that and get the patient to flex. Here's an example of I did one on the fly. This person at a conference here at tennis elbow, and I applied the matrix, created a matrix within, and then she emailed me later and said, basically that short treatment resolved her ongoing elbow problem. Here's an example of doing the square cupping, create a matrix, and then doing a range of motion with the cups on. Again, you're working all those extensors and really engaging them in a really dynamic way. Also, you can do the cups, these extra small cups, if you just use a bit of balm, like a beeswaxy type of balm, and you just sort of, I'll show you in the video if we have time, you can mat down the hair and then put these extra small cups right on gallbladder 20 and UB10. And then from there, you can see in the other video that I'll show, you can build a matrix and get some really cool immediate results. And then again, just you can kind of like stack them and kind of really target tissue. We have extra sets that you can buy of different sizes, so you can really build up more sizes, because if you want to like expand that out a little bit, you can add more to your treatment target zone. So here's an example of using Brian's Omni Cradle, where he's applied the square cups on the patient. Brian, you can talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I like this, again, I like to be really dynamic. And so I like to do, it's great in a seated position. Another option, if you like with this face cradle, allows for them to have movement, but it takes all the postural strain and stress off the tissue. So now I have his tissue in a more neutral state. And then I have the patient move left and right on their own to where they can kind of feel that stretch and really stretch that out. And I like to do this, John gave me this word, actually, I never thought about it, but I like to do a lot of cupping before some of my needling, especially down needling, because it's preconditioning the area. So it allows for me to remove a lot of some of the noise that sometimes is more built for compensations, and allows for me to feel and access some of that tissue that maybe didn't respond to the cupping, that still has a lot of fibrotic feel to it or a hypertonicity to it. So it's really good to think about, like, especially like the lumbar sacral area, thoracolumbar, to precondition that area with the cups, because it's so thick and it's so like the acupuncture needles, they do remodeling to fascia, but they're just not totally as amazing with the inert tissue as it is with the contractile tissue, because they're so thin, right? So preconditioning those fascial layers with the cup really creates a thixotropic sense to allow it to soften, and so you can get in there a little bit better.
Yeah, so we're running out of time, so we're going to kind of try to pull this together. And I want to introduce Yin-Yang cupping using the square plastic cups along with the round silicone cups, because in reality, we do actually have a perfect Yin-Yang pairing here. The square cups we call Yang, and the circular cups with the silicone are soft and hard, and they're rigid and pliable. We have strong decompression. We have a strong, but not the strongest. So you have these two that can work really well together. And how we would do that is thinking of the square cups applying along the flat surfaces of the tissues that you're targeting, and then using the silicone cups on the articulations. And then, because then now you're able to go from like, origin to insertion or close to insertion, and then build your decompression along all those tissues. So here's a little quick video that I did of how you would do that yin and yang treatment. So you precondition the fascia first, like Brian mentioned, that I basically think about it as a preconditioning. So I'm using the silicone cup here, and I'm twisting the cup as I'm moving it. That allows you to get that silicone cup right over that bony the epicondyle there. And once you kind of engage that, you've preconditioned it, leave it there, and then you can then precondition the flat area surface there with a little bit of a again, light cupping over that region. Again, like I like what Brian said, you're getting rid of that noise. You're telling the tissues there, hey, we're going to do something here. We're going to move things around. So doing a little bit of that preconditioning works, and then from there you would then apply the cups, and just basically choosing the size of cup that works best for the area you're working on. And you see here I've created, like, using sort of medium-sized cups to smaller to extra small. And then at the articulation again, I've put another silicone cup, and then asked the patient to do a little bit of range of motion to again work that whole extensor region, which is like basically like a happy moment in there, because all this change is happening and the tissues are loving that.
Mm-hmm.
So yin cups on the articulations and yang cups on the flat areas, and do range of motion, and there you go. Here's another quick little video on the shoulder, again preconditioning the area. And here when I apply the cup, before I apply the cups, I do that preconditioning and put the oil on. And this is a little tip that you can do, is you can use the pump and the extension hose together. Put the pump in your non-dominant hand, and here, see how I'm kind of like working the tissues. And because I have the pump in my other hand, if I lose pressure in the cup that I'm moving, I can quickly kind of reestablish it. I don't have to go get the pump and then pump it up, put it down, and then keep on moving. Yeah, I can just keep on moving, readjust. And like I see, like, there I go. Boom, I got it again, because he said it was a bit tight, and I was able to engage it. And here I go, I do a little bit of that pumping again, just creating that little bit of movement there, precondition the tissue, and got it all set up for the treatment that is about to ensue. Now I'm gonna, because it's a bony or irregular surface, I put a large yin cup on there, and then I'm building out the myofascial matrix, thinking of the infraspinatus, teres group, and then I'm gonna build on the supraspinatus, and then the upper trapezius. So again, see how you can just line the cups side by side, target those tissues, now build those matrices as you see fit. And then once you've got them all in place, so here I'm doing the supraspinatus, and then building in from there a strong decompression zone. And then I'll build up just sort of in between and kind of catch more of that infraspinatus. And you just saw a cup fall off there. And while you're building your matrix, sometimes you're building tension in one area, and it may change the decompression of another zone. It might fall off. Just go back, put it back on, and then it'll again create that full zonal decompression that you're trying to address. Here's the upper trap being treated, and then we will go to the deltoid, and then we'll work with I guess the coracobrachialis a little bit, and then get some range of motion happening. So all of that, just using a little bit of thinking about what you want to target with your patient. Now you've got that set up. You can then ask the patient to do some movement, some active range of motion. The patient is going to be careful and kind of not do it as much as you would hope they would. So this is where you ask them to do, just relax, and you can do passive range of motion. And you'll see me kind of now just take it a little bit further, because now I want to kind of like fully engage to the range that I can take it to with the cups. And then I kind of thought to myself, well, why don't I like put another yin cup on the elbow joint there again, just to create like Brian was saying, yeah, anchor a spot over here, and then work on a spot up there, and that'll also engage that. Right, Brian?
I think it's amazing. You do have two questions that popped up that seem like maybe you should answer, since they're yours. Is what do you recommend, oil or gel? And then how do you sterilize the cups?
So I recommend using a balm and then an oil. And so the balm is used for up in the hairy areas of where you're trying to get the cups up in here. You just mat down the hair, or if you have somebody with a lot of arm hair, you would use the balm to mat down the hair, and then it'll create a seal around the cup and the skin. And if somebody doesn't have any hair in the area, then I just use an oil, any form of coconut oil. And there's multiple oils that are out there that have various features. We're bringing out our own, actually, a fascia body cupping balm and a cupping oil. So stay tuned for that. And cleaning them, I use a antibacterial. I wash them with hot water, and then I will wipe them with an antibacterial wipe at the end to clean them. So I have this other video which basically kind of like show you a way of kind of doing this neck treatment, and I'm just kind of showing me building a range of so let me just back up here. I've created this decompression zone, and then while these cups are on, you can have the patient do range of motion while they're on, and so you can check before you actually put the cup on, get them to do a range of motion exercise. This video is now on the fasciabuddy.com. It walks you through detailed by detailed step on how to do it, but you can watch it and get a good sense of how pretty dramatically you can change somebody's range of motion very quickly. And I'm going to stop it there, because if we do have questions, I can take them now. Any other questions?
Hi guys, we do have a few questions here. I'm just going to go through them quickly and be respectful of time. Somebody, Laura says, how do you compare and contrast gua sha with static or moving cups?
Well, so gua sha is a highly effective technique also. And I guess when it's the level of intervention you want to do when you're engaging that tissue. If you're really wanting to have that full sha effect, where you're really wanting to do a deep engagement of that tissue, you can do that with a gua sha tool. You can even use the square cupping tool, the edge of that cup, to create that with decompression at the same time. But if you're not wanting to fully engage on that deeper level, the cups, just a moving cupping will work just as well. I don't know, Brian, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. One of the things I always like to go back to is, what are you palpating? What are you feel like? How does it feel? So if I do one technique and I don't feel like I got the response that I really wanted to, then I will change techniques and add that. So maybe if you started with gua sha and you've clearly, this is why it's important to palpate first, and you don't feel like you made any tissue change and you're not happy with those results, then it's a good time to switch. Some tissue, again, even needling techniques, some tissue responds better to certain needling techniques, just like everybody's body responds a little different too. So I would always go off what you feel, and there's no reason why you can't also integrate them both together. I would say if you feel like that, if there's so much tissue compression that is actually affecting the nerve, and there's like inflammation at that level, I would probably go first to the cupping to not add too much compressive force, more force to that nerve.
Okay, the next question is, I've had the opportunity to use this type of cup. I was having trouble with the pump, which successfully suctions more each time the lever is pressed. Can you talk about how to use the pump? And also, as a follow-up, how do you release the cups? I found the plastic tips a little tricky to release.
So the one key thing with the pump is just to make sure that we are pumping vertically right over the valve and not on an angle, because that will make it a little bit tricky for the suction to occur. And then the valves our new valves actually are a silicone valve, one-piece silicone valve that have a 2 lips. That if you look here, you can see these lips pull apart. And when you create the suction to the level you want, you can flick these very gently. And as you flick, it kind of releases a little bit of the air. And then if you want to fully release it, you just slowly flick it and then it'll come off. But that's the new valve we have. The previous valve we had was a, if I have it here, it's a 3-part plastic valve. Because this is a brand new product, the cups work fantastic. The valves we are evolving, and the latest generation, the one L.AC has now, is the silicone one. We are playing with with another version of this one, but let me tell you, they all work, and it's just a matter of just understanding how they work.
Great. Let's see. What conditions are counterindicated for the Yin-Yang cups, if any? Are they used only for musculoskeletal issues?
I think you can apply the cups in many, many ways. And whatever strategies, it's all like I said, everything is interconnected, interrelated. You can try them just for MSK, for myofascial decompression, but you can also try them just as an alternative to needling some particular spots. You can put a cup over them just because the spot is too tender to put a needle in. You can put a cup over that. And you can also, I do like to send my patients off with a little bit of light cupping as a way of kind of like a kind of flourish at the end of the treatment. So that's another way it can be done. There's just so many different ways it can be applied.
I do think, real quick, just cupping should always be an observed thing anyway. Even if you're doing static cupping and leave the room, you shouldn't leave the room too long. Obviously, if somebody has thinner skin, they're on blood thinners, things like that, you can't retain cupping, or maybe not as much pressure. So always making sure you empower your patient and have them communicate with you if it's too much or too little, and then make sure you're monitoring for that blistering. I've actually seen somebody peel somebody's skin off before, like literally like a quarter-size chunk. And then obviously any area where you're questioning blood clots, to phlebitis, thrombophlebitis, things like that, you still want to be very cautious with.
Great. Well, thank you guys. I know the hour is up. We really, really appreciate you both doing this. And we appreciate everybody for joining today. If we happen to miss any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at marketing@lasaoms.com, and be on the lookout for an email with the promo code, which is JSWebinar326. for 15% off your next order and a link to view the slides. We also have a large assortment of cupping products and accessories on lasaoms.com. And lastly, we proudly offer John's Fascia Buddy Square cupping set and AccuFast needles, as well as Brian's down needles and OUTCH ointment through our site, lasaoms.com. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks.
Bye.